Today we've got some brand new information on Total War Warhammer 40k coming from an exclusive interview published by GameStar. This interview finally gave us a much clearer idea of how the game actually works, from the galaxy map right down to the battles themselves. And honestly, it's starting to paint a very exciting picture. At the highest level, Total War Warhammer 40k is built around a galaxy map that acts as a central hub. This is where you decide how you want to engage with the war, whether that's for an evening, a weekend, or a long-term campaign. The galaxy is divided into sectors and solar systems, and the developers refer to this entire structure as the Crusade Theatre, essentially the stage on which the war for the universe is fought. From here, you choose how your faction influences the wider conflict. Within each solar system are what the developers call flashpoints, and these are the core ways you actually play the game. There are three main types. The first is the major campaign, which is the classic Total War sandbox experience. Over many turns, you expand your empire, raise armies, and fight over multiple planets. A single solar system can contain up to 10 planets, making these campaigns large, strategic, and time-consuming in the best possible way. The second option is the short campaign. These are designed to be completed in a single evening and are more focused experiences, often with fewer planets and a stronger narrative push. They seem ideal for players who want to complete Total War experiences without committing dozens of hours. The third option is strike battles. These drop you straight into a decisive conflict already underway. These are fast, action-focused battles meant for quick sessions where you just want to get straight into the fighting. What is especially interesting is that victories in these modes do not exist in isolation. Success in one solar system can actually carry over to the others, unlocking new advantages for your faction across the wider galaxy. Helping another faction in one campaign might cause them to return later as allies, while major victories can unlock special actions for specific Space Marine chapters or one-time strategic benefits. This creates a persistent sense of narrative where your actions actually shape the ongoing war. Now, of course, this is hugely descriptive, and ultimately you're probably going to want to actually see it in action to really understand how it's working. But when you do zoom in from the galaxy level, each campaign takes place within a single solar system made up of multiple planets. Some of these systems are handcrafted by the developers and function much like traditional Total War campaigns, with carefully placed factions and balanced starting positions. Others will be procedurally generated, taking inspiration from games like Civilization. In these systems, planet types, biomes, and faction starting locations are actually randomized, meaning that you could actually find yourself fighting across ice worlds, jungle mining planets, or densely populated hive worlds. In this structure, planets function much like continents did in the old Total War games, while space acts as the connective layer between them, similar to how seas once worked. The sheer scale of Warhammer 40k has forced the developers to completely rethink how Total War maps function, and this seems to be their solution. Speaking of solutions, I hope that this channel has been increasingly providing you with solutions of how you keep up to date with the increasing number of Warhammer 40k titles. It's an exciting time for sure, but there's going to be lots to unpack and uncover and discover, and so if you're interested in future videos on Dawn of War Central, then make sure that you are subscribed. More importantly, that you give the video a thumbs up. It's really going to help me out on the YouTube algorithm. As always, I really appreciate all the support that you guys continue to give me. Now, we are far from done on this video because space itself in Total War Warhammer 40k plays a major strategic role. Even though full space battles weren't discussed in detail, you will be able to upgrade ships, train units in space, and also support ground battles with orbital bombardments. Some planets begin campaigns already devastated by war, their surfaces scarred by craters visible from orbit, and yes, Exterminatus is in the game. Entire planets can actually be destroyed, if it makes strategic sense. Not just by the Imperium, but by the other factions like Orcs and Eldar as well. The scope of Total War Warhammer 40k looks absolutely massive, and I do wonder whether we will actually have battles in space, and that's entirely possible. What I have gleaned from a lot of the information is that the developers are not going for a single launch and then just leave the game. Actually, they are planning multiple, and probably even more DLCs in the future with various factions, but honing things down a little bit on the battlefield, real-time combat is still very much Total War at its core. Despite the presence of guns, tanks and aircraft, the developers stress that Warhammer 40k remains a very physical setting, with brutal close combat at its heart. You'll still see massive formations clashing, chainswords tearing through enemies, and the kind of over-the-top violence that the setting is famous for. The biggest change about the game really is coming from its new engine, and its focus on destruction. Battles, especially in dense urban environments, can completely reshape the map. Skyscrapers can collapse mid-fight, entire districts can be leveled, and the battlefield evolves as the conflict continues. This destruction isn't just visual either. Heavy units like Space Marines in Terminator armor can shrug off collapsing buildings, while lighter infantry such as Astra Militarum troops are likely to be wiped out entirely. What's really interesting is that cover is now fully physical and dynamic. And I have to say, recently in Dawn of War and the conversations about that game, cover is actually featuring rather heavily on the discussions, because it looks like in Dawn of War 4, the cover mechanics are going to be relatively simple without any dynamic cover being available. In Total War Warhammer 40k, however, units can take cover behind ruins or in craters created during the battle, but protection depends on positioning, angles, and elevation. Every projectile is calculated individually, and if a shot hits an obstacle, it doesn't actually deal damage. If fire comes from above, cover may be useless. This doesn't turn the game into Company of Heroes, but it does make positioning and terrain far more important than before. I have to say, cover in particular is a gameplay mechanic that looks to be a really heavy talking point, especially when you're comparing Dawn of War 4 to Total War Warhammer 40k. Either way, battles will also be filled with chaos and unpredictability. Flying units can be shot down and crash into buildings, triggering explosions that cause entire structures to collapse. Orbital bombardments can completely change the flow of a fight, and Space Marines can deploy reinforcements mid-battle via drop pods, slamming elite troops directly into the combat zone. Each faction brings a distinct playstyle. Space Marines are elite and powerful, but heavily outnumbered. The Astra Militarum relies on the overwhelming numbers and expendable troops. Orcs combine brute strength with sheer chaos and unpredictability, and the Eldari focus on speed, psychic abilities, and teleportation, hitting hard but struggling to make sustained punishment. Now, I do have a couple more snippets of information I wanted to share with you guys, but actually, one of the most exciting things about making these videos is actually reading the comments in the comment section below, and there's a really important discussion that I feel like we've got to have, and that's about cover mechanics. As we know with Dawn of War 4, in the most recent interview that I did cover on the channel by the way, we discovered that actually the cover system is going to be relatively simple with Dawn of War 4 with no dynamic cover. So essentially you're going to be placing the cover structures, or they could already be existing on the map. As we've discovered earlier in the video, Total War Warhammer 40k will have dynamic cover systems. I'm kind of interested in your thoughts about this situation, because Dawn of War 4, well, it's not going to have a complex cover mechanic it seems, but in a weird way that could be okay in a real-time strategy game. Total War Warhammer 40k, however, are going full guns blazing and will have that dynamic cover system. What do you guys prefer? Do you think actually Dawn of War 4 should maybe take a look at this again and think about more dynamic cover systems? Or do you think actually the games are, very different, and it's a little bit more okay for Dawn of War being a real-time strategy game, having less dynamic cover systems? I'm kind of curious. I wonder if it's going to spark a bit of a debate. Either way, let's still talk about Total War Warhammer 40k, because finally, the developers confirmed that Chaos Space Marines will not be present at launch, but they are absolutely planned for the future, along with several other iconic factions from the setting. This actually, as it happens, is also a talking point about Dawn of War 4, because the developers haven't committed to further factions, not nearly in the same way at least, that Creative Assembly have for Total War Warhammer 40k. Now, I know you guys might be thirsty for more information, and fear not, because we will be covering this game on the channel, but more importantly, there's a specific date to keep an eye on, because more information is expected very soon, specifically on the 16th of December. You won't want to miss it, so make sure you are subscribed. Most importantly, hit the notification bell, because then you get a ding-dong when I do upload that video. Overall, the interview suggests that Total War Warhammer 40k isn't just a reskin of previous games, but actually a genuine evolution of the Total War formula, scaled up to galactic warfare. Now, whether you want deep, long-term campaigns or quick, brutal battles, this game looks like it's designed to support every kind of 40k fan. With that in mind, I hope you guys enjoyed this discussion and also, most importantly, the information. I'm certainly excited for the future of Warhammer 40k, at least from a gaming perspective, and until the next video, take care and see you next time.